You might have heard of the concept of a climate lockdown. It's been touted before. It's the idea that, if emissions start going far too high, the government is going to have to do things about it. And would you believe there's an outfit, you probably haven't heard of it, called the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. They were talking about this back in 2020. This is to quote directly from their website. Under a climate lockdown, governments would limit private vehicle use.
Oh, that
sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Ban consumption of red meat. Where have I heard that one before? Impose extreme energy-saving measures. You mean like in Queensland, where they've been turning down people's air conditioners, while fossil fuel companies would have to stop drilling? Where have I heard that one before? To avoid such a scenario, we must overhaul our economic structures and do capitalism differently. Now, this outfit, if you care to go on your website, and we'll show you some of the examples of their members here, the members make up pretty much every big business in the world. They're all on there, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, including, of course, BP, an oil company you saw on the screen there.
Deloitte,
Apple, Bridgestone, the tyre makers. Everyone is on there back in 2020. They foreshadowed all of these things that might happen, and now we're seeing them happen. And, it's not necessarily happening on a grand scale in terms of someone walks in the room and says, rightio, we're doing this all at once, but it's already happening piecemeal. We've talked this week about the Yarra Council in Melbourne, for instance, which wants to, charge you more to park your car if it's an SUV, because their ultimate goal is to have fewer cars driving through the city of Yarra. We've talked about emission standards in terms of food now. I mean, the review that they're doing into the dietary recommendations, which you would imagine tells you, what's the best food to eat to achieve the best nutritional outcomes, now has to take into account the emissions involved in producing that food. Everything that they said back in 2020 was going to happen. What a surprise.
If that's their definition of a climate lockdown, we're already in one. It's already well and truly underway. Now, this get-up calls itself, they say, we're a CEO-led organisation of over 200 leading companies. And you saw those companies, they're not mucking around. These are serious, massive household names worldwide. I would love to know, do a slow scroll one day when I've got nothing else to do, and see how many of those companies are, at least in part, owned by BlackRock and or Vanguard and or State Street, because they're all pushing the same agenda. And we talk tirelessly about the weaponization of the corporates and how big a part they play when it comes to these agendas. So I love that we've found this secret little known hub of theirs, where 200 of the most powerful have gotten together. Nobody's ever heard of them. I certainly hadn't until today when I came across this.
They boast on their website that their goal is, quote, working to accelerate, which is an interesting term, accelerate a transition to a sustainable world, which makes me wonder, well, what is a sustainable world? They say it's where 9 billion people are living well and, here's the important point, within the boundaries of the planet by 2050. I suppose they are the ones who determine the boundaries, and they have three major goals, right?
I thought was where the atmosphere was, right? What are they saying? We can't go to Mars anymore.
You would think business people would understand the world is not a pie that has to be divided into smaller and smaller pieces. We keep creating wealth. Wealth isn't a finite resource. Technology allows us to create more and more wealth, but they say three things have to happen to avoid a climate lockdown. Business has to change, and instead of looking after shareholders, it's all about stakeholders. So business isn't profit motivated, it's all about...
And business not profit motivated? What sort of business is that?
Wait till you hear about what they say about government. Government has to be interventionist, so government can't simply sit back. Government has to pick winners and losers. And then third, the finance industry has to direct its money to people who will use it well. And of course, they will determine who uses it well. The more I read on this website, the more I was convinced it's got nothing to do with saving the planet from a climate crisis and everything to do with reshaping capitalism to reflect reflect their values,
correct, to protect
which
themselves.
will become our values.
I mean, they talk about, you know, it's not about profit. It's about the profits of the 200-odd businesses that have signed up to this outfit and shutting everyone else out because, you know, because we're a big business, we can afford to absorb this kind of stuff and we can do all this great stuff for the world. I mean, just ask yourself the question, why is a company like BP signed up to an outfit like this? Do you reckon BP has any interest in there being less oil used in the world? Of course not. It's just a great big protection racket, essentially.
And, of course, there'll be conferences in beautiful locations around the world that they will need to attend on private jets and eating Wagyu steak.
And the ESG points.